Good morning. How's it going? Doing good? Hope you're doing good. If you noticed in the last video, these decorations up, still didn't take them down. They're still there. But it was my birthday. Wow, I know, right? I'm 26 now, which means that I did it. I made it. I know it all. There's nothing left for me. I've made it to the point where I now know everything, and now I can just coast. I don't have to learn anything anymore. But no, I'm 26 now. It's pretty good. I know I'm not old by any regards, but I am growing older, and no, it feels good. I know that I've been reminded time and time again by everyone that's about a year or two younger than me that I am now old. But there's this quote somewhere along the, I don't know, in literature, on the internet, somewhere. To not complain about growing old, it's a privilege denied to many. So, again, I feel like I say this quite a bit. I'm not a religious or a spiritual man now, but I definitely do feel blessed in some regard that I made it. I'm here, another year. So that's all fine and good. I feel good about that. But on the flip side, what does any of it mean? I hate to be the one to break it to you. This might come as a shocker or surprise, but you're gonna die one day. I know. I will too. People die. Civilizations collapse. I know we're getting a little dark little pivot here, but we've seen that time and time again across history. Every star, like the sun that we have floating around in the sky here, which has been playing pretty good recently. We had a stretch of like 100 degrees. It's now like a cool like high 60, low 70. They said fall was going to come early this year, and I think I think they were right. But regardless, it too will exhaust its fuel and die. On a long enough timeline, every single structure that we build, maybe not necessarily you and I, but humanity, every single structure that humanity builds, every word that we speak, every achievement that we've had and we've celebrated, they're all gonna vanish, fairy dust. As Percy Bysshe Shelley said in quite a famous little piece about Ozymandias. How does it go? It's at the inscription of a foot of a statue, and it says, and I got this written down so I don't butcher it too bad. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. Everything that we do one day will vanish. I know, it's all a bit of a downer, really. Sorry about that. If all things pass, though, you kind of have to ask yourself the question, what's the point of doing anything at all? What's the point of making it to 27? If you've ever reached, that point of existential dread, that angst, I feel like that usually comes around your teenage years. But I'd say you're not alone. Really, you're actually in the majority. I think of most all majorities. I think it's kind of a universal question for anyone, really. At least every single person that I've met has gone through some sort of version, of that, and asked that question. And while their answers may differ a little bit, philosophers, across centuries have asked that very same question. It's kind of the root of most questions. What's the point of any of this? Why are we here? What is our meaning, in life and existing in the universe? And all those answers that those philosophers came up with, they all sort of orbit this singular common truth. Impermanence, or really the lack of infinity, is not the enemy of meaning. Rather, it is the condition that makes meaning possible. Now, do you Do you like Sisyphus? I'm not sure if I've asked you that before. Do you like him? The man condemned to push this boulder up a hill for all of eternity. Do you like the French? I'm sure I haven't asked you that one before. Do you like the French? Do you like the absurd? I might just have the guy for you. See, Albert Camus described himself as an absurdist. And he framed the dilemma, imposed the fundamental philosophical question, is life worth living? In the myth of Sisyphus. If the universe has no ultimate purpose. And this is going to be subjective. I get it. It's to your own personal beliefs. I know there are some people that are very strong in their will and the fact that there is, some sort of afterlife, some heaven, some whatever. That's all well and good. You are well within your rights and your freedoms to do that. Believe what it is that you want to believe. But for now, just play along with me, I suppose, a little bit. Just humor me. But if the universe has no ultimate purpose, and everything ends in death and oblivion and in nothingness, why not simply refuse to play the game? As Rustin Cole of True Detective fame said, and I wrote this down during my angsty first watch of season 1 of True Detective, but to paraphrase, or to quote Cole, he said, I think the honorable thing for our species to do is to deny our programming, to stop reproducing, walk hand in hand into extinction. One last midnight, brothers and sisters, opting out of a raw deal. Camus called this clash between our longing for meaning and the silence we get back from the universe as the absurd. Excuse me. And his answer to this absurd was to rebel, and rather not resign like Rustin Cole suggested that we do. Excuse me. See, Sisyphus, the eternal boulder roller, became a symbol then. Even knowing that the task is endless, Sisyphus, one must imagine that Sisyphus is happy. The point is not found in the single truth of your finality, but rather it's the act of living fully in face of futility. The end of everything does not erase meaning. No, it makes the act of defiance, the choice to live in spite of that, much more meaningful. Do you still like the French? Then Jean-Paul Sartre, and I may be completely butchering that name, Jean-Paul Sartre may be up your alley. He extends our dear friend Albert's logic into, if there is no ultimate purpose, rather, then meaning is not discovered, but created. In being in nothingness, he described humans as condemned to be free. Can you imagine that? Being condemned to have free choice and free will? It's a terrifying thought. And despite our best efforts, and trust me, I've seen people try. I've even tried a little bit myself, but we cannot escape the responsibility of choice. And you not making a choice, granted, it's still a choice, but you not doing anything, you're choosing to do nothing. Just want to throw that one out there. But he understood that this feeling of freedom can be utterly terrifying. And if nothing has inherent meaning, then nothing is guaranteed to matter. But Sartre, in his wisdom, he argued that is also a liberation. The end of everything frees us from the illusion of permanence. We then must, it's really our duty to, become the authors of our own lives. To act, to write, to love, to create, and to commit. And you get it. But it's to just inscribe meaning into a singular, fleeting canvas. That canvas one day also will vanish, but the act itself is the answer to the very question that we've been chasing. What is the point? And everyone's favorite German existentialist, Nietzsche, took a very different angle. He had a thought experiment, and it goes, I wrote this thought experiment down from the mouth of Nietzsche. He said, "What if you had to live your life over and over, exactly as it is, for all of eternity? Would you curse the demon who told you this, or would you embrace it? You see, what would you do?" See, Nietzsche was trying to figure something out. At least I believe so. If you can live your life in such a way that you would gladly repeat every joy, every feeling, every sorrow forever, then it must mean that you have said yes to life. The fact that everything then ends just becomes irrelevant. It doesn't matter. What matters is you live your life in a way that you go back and you would choose it every single time. This experiment sort of reframes the question. If life is finite, then the task is not to seek permanence, but to live so deeply that you would even accept its repetition. Sometimes I feel like we forget we actually have choice. Free will, the ability to say whatever it is that we want and do whatever it is that we want. Of course, there will be consequences to that, but we have that ability. See, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself of that daily and saying, did I write this one down? I did. I wrote this one down. Marcus Aurelius said, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." See, back in ancient Rome, the Stoics did not believe that the point of life was to cling to permanence, but to virtuously, in the time that's allocated to you, the time that's given to you, to live fully, to live in that. And what you were given. Death was never a threat, never something to fear, but rather a compass that then guided life. What is the point of focusing on that which is out of our control? Now we must then focus on our choices, our character, and our actions in the present. So finally, to wrap all this up, my long little spiel, if everything ends, what's the point of doing anything at all? Pausing for dramatic effect here. That's the point. Everything ends. That's why it all matters. That's why love matters. That's why art matters. Why we do what we do matters. Meaning isn't just handed down. It's created in the fleeting moments that we have here together. If everything ends, then everything matters all the more while it's here.